Hello everyone, my name's Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX06, and EX6 offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be the premier deck out of EX6, and that's going to be the 7 Great Demon Lords deck. So if you're unfamiliar with what 7 Great Demon Lords is doing, it is a Megazoo type deck where the idea is you're just going to be hard playing big bodies as cheaply and efficiently as you can possibly make them. Then each of those big bodies are going to do something different, creating a toolbox so you could handle various different situations. If this sounds familiar, that's because this concept isn't necessarily new, and we've had a couple of decks that fit this type of category in terms of how this deck is going to be playing. More specifically, we've had 2 decks that really closely resemble what this deck is doing, and that's going to be Royal Knights from BT13 and D-Reapers from EX2, because they're also very unique in how they're playing, being clock or countdown style decks. So if you're unfamiliar with that type of a deck, well, it is exactly as it sounds, where you're putting the opponent on a clock and you're building up a card that's going to be counting down towards their inevitable defeat. Usually the way that they do this is they're going to have a special egg that's going to have cards be shoved underneath it, and that egg is going to be what's going to make your cards cheaper to use. And once the egg has enough cards underneath it, it's going to do something with another card to be able to basically win the game on the spot, which is what's making this type of deck really powerful, especially since 7 Great Demon Lords is the newest iteration of this style of deck, making it the strongest. So the deck isn't necessarily without its faults though, and these faults are fairly known and fairly common throughout countdown or clock style decks, which is the fact that floodgates can actually just lock you out of the game and ruin your overall game plan, making it harder to, well, actually function as a deck. Then, because the deck also is a countdown or clock style deck, it does actually take time in order to build up your resources to get you to that winning position, and, well, that gives the opponent plenty of time to be able to beat you before then, or that gives them time to try to figure out a way to counter your endgame strategy. But in spite of those flaws, it's still a very strong and powerful deck to be playing around with. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile and see what we're working with. Starting with the Digitamas, I'm only going to be running 4 copies of Gate of Deadly Sins. So Gate of Deadly Sins, as I kind of alluded to before, is that resource or value engine that's going to be acting as our clock that's going to build up itself, make our cards cheaper, and ideally interact with another card to win us the game on the spot. So what this card is doing more specifically is it has 3 abilities that triggers in our raising or breeding area. So the first one states that at the start of our main phase, we get to place the top card of our Digi-Egg deck to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source and delete all of our Digimon. If this effect deleted a Digimon, then we get to place one 7 Great Demon Lord traded card from our trash to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source. So this is what's going to allow us to get more gates underneath it, so we could utilize the gates inheritable ability, where during your turn, once per turn, when a 7 Great Demon Lord traded Digimon would be played, we get to reduce the cost by 3, and if this Digimon has 5 or more Digivolution sources with different names, then we get to reduce the play cost by 4 instead. So that's the ability that's going to stack with all of our other gates in our inheritables to make our Digimon cheaper and cheaper to play the later the game goes, and if we have enough cards underneath, then it makes it even cheaper for us to play out our cards. And what this is doing is building up our inheritable sources, so that way we could use its third ability, where at the end of the opponent's turn, by deleting this Digimon with 7 or more Digivolution sources with different names, we get to play out one Ogudamon from our trash for free, which is the big late game end boss monster that's ideally going to try to win us the game. So I know that some decks sometimes like to run one copy of King Drazel, and King Drazel does have some really interesting synergies with Gate because it's doing some very similar things to Gate, where the idea of it is it allows us to shift our playstyle a little bit if this is the first card seen, just because it's going to also add our gates underneath, which allows us to have access at its inheritable ability still, while not deleting any of our other Demon Lords constantly. So every turn, we just get to play a Demon Lord, have it stick, and it still makes our other Demon Lords cheaper and cheaper because it's still adding our Gate of Deadly Sins underneath it. Next, on to the rookies. I'm going to be running a couple of rookies that are going to be helping with the overall consistency of the deck. So first off, I'm going to be taking a look at 4 copies of Sister Mont Blanc. So we don't necessarily, again, care about the fact that it's doing stuff with Royal Knights or Huckmon specifically. We only care about the fact that it has a 3 play cost, and its ability on play allows us to discard 1 to draw 2, and that's pretty much it. And Lucimon is fitting another similar role. He's just a little bit more expensive because even though we aren't going to be digivolving him on top of a Cupimon because we have the Gate to be our egg, we still get to play him for a reduced cost of 5 as long as we don't have a level 5 or lower Digimon in play, which is a fairly easy and simple thing for this deck to do. Then he has an ability that triggers at the start of our main phase and when we play him, where we get to reveal the top 3 cards from our deck, and then we get to add 1 card with the trait of Angel, Archangel, 3 Great Angel, or 7 Great Demon Lords from among them into our hand and trash the rest. So again, it's just trying to look for specific cards that we want to see and fill up our trash so we could have our trash nice and full for our Gate to start grabbing cards from. Then he even has a nice end of your turn ability, where by placing one of our level 6 Digimon on the top of our security stack, this Digimon can digivolve into a Lucimon Chaos Mode from your trash for free. So it's just another way at having access at utilizing our Lucimon Chaos Mode. Next, when it comes to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Porcupamon. So Porcupamon is another really fantastic high synergy card for the deck because this is going to be acting as our Floodgate removal card, because when we play him and when he gets deleted, so this could trigger twice because remember, our Gate still is going to be deleting our Digimon, so that's adding extra value to this card, where we get to delete one of the opponent's level 3 Digimon. And most of the Floodgates we want to get rid of are, well, level 3 Digimon, and this also could get rid of any other problematic rookies that we want to try to remove for a pretty cheap cost, because he only has a play cost of 4. And then when it comes to the level 5s, I'm just going to be running a couple of Lucimon Chaos Modes. So we do have 2 different Lucimon Chaos Modes that we want to use, which is going to be 1 copy of the BT7 one, because it has a nice on-play and when digivolving ability to delete the opponent's Tamer, or delete a level 6 or lower Digimon, which is still some pretty decent room. Then we also are going to be utilizing the EX06 Lucimon Chaos Mode in some similar ways. He does have a couple of different abilities that is going to be separating him from the BT7 version, where whether we're playing him or digivolving into him, we get to make the opponent delete one of their Digimon or Tamers, so it's still acting as that removal ability. It's just they have the choice where if they don't want to get rid of anything, then we trash the top card of their security, and we also get to recover 1. So it really is forcing the opponent to be put into a bad position on either losing a security and we gaining a security, or losing a Digimon or Tamer. Then we also have another ability that triggers during all turns, where when this Digimon would leave the battle area, which is mainly from our Gate ability or if the opponent is trying to remove him, then we can return 1 Lucimon from our Digimon's Digivolution source or our trash to the bottom of the deck and play a Lucimon Satan mode or a level 6 7 Great Demon Lord traded card from our trash without paying the cost. So even though we don't have Satan mode right now, the fact that we could still use him to bring out our other 7 Great Demon Lords is still pretty decent on making all of our other 7 Great Demon Lords that much more usable. And speaking of our other Demon Lords, this is where the rest of our level 6s is going to be delegated towards, is just all of the other Great Demon Lords. So I'm going to be running 2 copies of the EX5 Leviamon for his removal ability, where we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with the highest level and then delete one with the lowest level, as long as they have as many or more total Digimon and Tamers than you do, which ideally our field isn't going to be super full, so they reasonably should. Then he even has a nice All-Turns ability, where when an opponent's Digimon gets deleted, we get to gain a memory for each Digimon deleted, so we have lots of different ways to remove Digimon in this deck, so we could gain a pretty decent amount of memory back utilizing this version of Leviamon. And then I'm also going to be running 2 copies of the brand new Leviamon. So this is basically doing something kind of similar, where instead of just deleting one high and one low level, it's actually going to be allowing us to discard a 7 Great Demon Lord traded card, and we get to move 3 sources off of one of the opponent's Digimon. And then if they have as many or fewer total Digimon and Tamers as us, then we also get to delete one of their Digimon with no Digivolution sources, which is still pretty decent, just because source stripping sometimes can be important at trying to disrupt the opponent's Digimon. And then he has a nice All-Turns ability, where when this Digimon would leave the battle area other than by battle, which is referencing getting deleted by gate, we get to place one 7 Great Demon Lord traded card from our trash to the bottom of our Gate of Deadly Sins that's in our breeding area to try to help accelerate the clock. And because I'm running a couple of Leviamons, I'm also just going to be running Leviamon X because he's just more removal. With his when Digivolving ability, where if the opponent has more total Digimon and Tamers than we do, then we get to delete one of their Tamers, and then we also get to delete one of their level 3 Digimons, one of their level 5 Digimons, and one of their level 7 Digimons. While this card also being an X antibody means that it does technically have a different name than Leviamon, so it adds to our overall Demon Lord count. And then I'm also going to be running 1 copy of Lilithmon for, well, just more removal. So she has an on-play and when Digivolving ability, where until the end of the opponent's turn, one of their Digimon actually gains an ability to basically kill themselves at the end of your turn, which is pretty decent. It's not the greatest because we'd rather just have it be instantaneous, but it's still not bad at trying to get rid of specific Digimon. Then she has a nice All-Turns ability, where when this Digimon would leave the battle area other than by... Then we get to delete one level 5 or lower Digimon. It doesn't even have to be yours. It could be the opponent's, or it could also be yours. And we get to prevent it from leaving play, so it keeps our Lilithmon around, even through our gate or potentially the opponent's removal. Then she also has a third ability, where during the opponent's turn, once per turn, when another Digimon is deleted, we get to trash the top card of the opponent's security stack, which combos with her on-play ability, which is going to make the opponent's Digimon delete themselves, so that way we could also just burn the opponent's security, which makes it even easier to win. And then we still have more Demon Lords to go over, which I'm going to be playing 2 copies of Belphegor Sleep Mode. So yes, this is just another Demon Lord with a different name for our gate, and its on play and when Digivolving ability allows us to place a Rage Mode from our trash to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source, and this Digimon can't attack, and it isn't affected by your opponent's effects. It's still affected by your effects, but we don't necessarily care, because we're just using Sleep Mode to try to stall the opponent a little bit more, because its secondary ability triggers during the opponent's turn once per turn. When one of their Digimon attacks, we get to discard 2 cards from our hand to just end the attack, which could really start to limit some of the opponent's overall aggression. So even though we can't do the whole Sleep Mode into Rage Mode thing, you could tech the deck to include a way to do that. We don't necessarily care, because the Rage Mode that we are going to be playing is still pretty decent for what it is, because it has an on-play and when Digivolving ability, so we could still combo it it with our sleep mode if we really wanted to, where we get to trash up to 3 cards from our hand, and then for each card, we get to suspend one of the opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon, then delete all their Digimon with the lowest play cost that's suspended. So it's just, again, more removal, which is just the name of this deck, is just trying to remove and stall while building up our gate to our end goal. And it has a nice secondary ability that's doing the exact same thing as what the Leviamon is doing, where it's just going to try to help fuel our gate. Then I'm going to be running 4 copies of Beelzemon from EX06. So this is one of the better cards, which is why I'm running at the higher number, because this Digimon natively has Rush, so we could use this to make him cheaper and try to swing with Rush for the game, making him that much more usable, on top of the fact that he has a nice on-play and when digivolving ability, where we get to mill the top 4 cards of our deck, and then if we have 10 or more cards in our trash, we get a de-digivolve 2 on one of the opponent's Digimon, which isn't necessarily getting rid of the problem, but because we have so much other removal, it really doesn't matter, and it's just anti-tempoing the opponent. Then he has that same ability that we saw with Leviamon and Rage Mode to, again, accelerate our gates so we can try to make our end goal that much easier between all of our other different Demon Lords, which is what Creepymon's secondary ability is also doing. Creepymon also just is a little bit more usable because he, like Beelzemon, has an ability native to him, which is going to be Blocker, so that way we can try to stave off some potential damage, while his on-play and when digivolving ability is, again, more removal, and mill that many cards from the top of our deck based on the level of that Digimon that we deleted. So it's also helping fuel our trash to get it into the particular state that we need it to be in, so we can make our cards that much more effective. Then, when it comes to the level 7s, I am going to be running 1 copy of Shine Greymon Ruin Mode because this deck actually is really good for Shine Greymon Ruin Mode. You could technically run any other level 7 that could digivolve on top of purple, especially ones with on-delete abilities, because they're going to end up getting deleted due to our gate. But Shine Greymon Ruin Mode is just the best at the moment because it has a nice when digivolving and on-delete ability to be able to give the opponent's Digimon minus 5,000 DP, and this does persist through their turn, so we could just hard play a Demon Lord for cheap, digivolve it into a Ruin Mode, and just ruin the opponent's day because of this ability. And the only other level 7 of the deck that we're going to be running is going to be our win condition Big Boss Monster, which is 2 copies of Ogudamon. So Ogudamon also can digivolve on top of a level 5 or higher 7 Great Demon Lord traded Digimon for 6. It can digivolve on top of a level 6 for 7, or we're just gonna most likely play it off of our gate for free. So it has a really powerful when digivolving and when attacking ability, where we can place up to 7 Great Demon Lord traded cards with different names from our trash to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source, and for every 4 that we place, we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers. So that's why we want to try to accelerate and fuel our gate as quickly as we possibly can, so when we do go into this card, he's just going to nuke the opponent's field when we're going to be attacking or digivolving. Then he also has a nice when attacking ability on top of that, where we get to return 7 Great Demon Lord traded Digimons with different names from this Digimon's Digivolution source to the bottom of our deck to delete 7 of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers, and then trash up to 7 of their security stack. And for each card this effect deletes, we get to reduce the number of security cards trashed by 1. So it's either getting rid of the rest of their cards or just getting rid of all of their security, which is the really powerful thing. So ideally, we're going to try to clear their field as best as we possibly can with all of our different Demon Lords, keep it as cleared, go up into him, clear some more things, and then ideally swing and delete the opponent's entire security stack and win the game that way. And then when it comes to the Tamers, I'm going to be playing a rather slim Tamer lineup for the time being, which is going to be one copy of Matt Ishida. This is going to be the deck's dedicated memory setting Tamer, so that way we're always going to be at least at 3 memory to try to make some of our plays. And he's also really good because we get to recycle a purple Digimon or option card from our trash, so we have more usability off of our cards. And then I'm also going to be running 3 copies of Digimon Emperor. So Digimon Emperor is a fantastic anti-meta card to really punish the opponent's greedy raising plays. When the opponent is going to be raising a level 3 Digimon out, then we get to gain 2 memory. So this does stack with other Emperors, so the more Emperors we have, the more memory we're going to gain, which could potentially slow down the opponent, especially if they're running specific cards that they want to keep on the... Then it also has an additional ability that's making the deck even more consistent because we have such high levels of removal, where during all turns, when an opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon is deleted, we get to suspend this Tamer to draw a card. And then when it comes to the option lineup, I'm just going to be keeping it simple and running 1 copy of Calling from the Darkness because this card is limited to 1, and it's doing something similar to Matt, where it's allowing us to try to reuse cards that are in our trash. And then I'm going to be running 2 copies of Rivals Barrage. So Rivals Barrage is, yet again, another card that allows us to try to reuse cards in our trash by utilizing its delay ability, which we're going to set up if this card is ever milled out of our deck. So we get to return a purple Digimon or Tamer from our trash to our hand, which is really nice, but out of our security, and if we're actually using its other main ability, it's just more added removal by deleting one of the opponent's Digimon with the highest level. And then speaking of more removal, that's why I'm also running 3 copies of Biting Crush, because Biting Crush allows us to discard a card from our hand to fill up our trash, and then we get to delete one of the opponent's level 6 or lower Digimon, and if the card that we trashed just so happened to have 7 Great Demon Lords in its trait, which is the vast majority of the deck, then we also get to place this card into the battle area to use for its delay ability that triggers when the opponent is playing a Digimon by card effect. We also get to play out a Leviamon from our trash for free, which we have 2 different Leviamons that are pretty decent at trying to remove the opponent's Digimon with. And the last option I'm going to be running is going to be 4 copies of Rise of the 7 Great Demon Lords, which is an option that is 7 Great Demon Lord traded as well, where we get to place a 7 Great Demon Lord from our hand or trash to the bottom of our Gate of Deadly Sins in our raising area, and then this card goes into the battle area, so it's again another card to help accelerate our gate, which accelerates the overall clock and countdown we're putting on the opponent. And the delay ability we're going to be gaining is when one of our Digimon with 7 Great Demon Lords in his traits is deleted, which could happen either by the opponent or by our own gate. Then we get to play a 7 Great Demon Lord traded card from the Digivolution source of our Gate of Deadly Sins in our raising area for free, allowing us to even have access to the cards that are underneath our gate. And for the most part, that's kind of just it for the deck. I know it's just a lot to take in, but the deck, it does have a lot of different moving parts and pieces because of all of the different cards it kind of requires in order to function the way it wants to. And the deck has even more tech and tools that it can think about utilizing depending on the matchups that you're trying to tech for, the meta you're expecting to play against, and what cards you even have access to. And it's not like the deck is going to be dead in the water like some of the other decks. It actually does have some potential future upgrades because as long as we get new 7 Great Demon Lords, that's always something to think about including inside of the deck. And we even have some indirect synergies with just other purple options and just some other generic cards that we could think about incorporating to further enhance what the deck is doing when we get them, making it a relatively solid investment.